Hi everyone, I'm Megan McCarthy, editor of Sign Africa. Thank you for joining us for this webinar on the blueprint for the rebuilding and recovery of the printing industry. Just some house rules for our attendees. If you have a question for the panelists, please only post these in the Q&A section. That'll be a little block on your right-hand side. Please also remember to take our polls in the poll section. Everyone should have a little poll chat that's popped up. The webinar will be facilitated by Tiffany Fernandez, founder and senior brand and marketing strategist at Effectus, as well as Abisha Katerere, printing SA marketing manager and BBBEE specialist. Our panelists include Grant Fort-Peter, general manager of FUJIFILM Graphic Systems, Anya Curtin, product manager wide format FUJIFILM Graphic Systems, Dr. Abdul Majid Mohammed, printing SA CEO, and Edward de Klerk, General Secretary for the South African Typographical Union. Tiffany and Abisha, I'll hand over to you.
Thank you very much, Megan. I think to kick us off, we'd just like a message from the GM of FUJIFILM Graphic Systems. So I'll intro you, Grant.
Okay. Good morning. Good morning to all the panelists and good morning to the audience. Thank you so much for taking the time out today to join us on this webinar, on the first part of this two-part webinar series. We hope that today adds value to you and to your businesses. And today is really about, starting to develop a blueprint for the revitalization and the revival of this print industry that's been under pressure for so long. So FUJIFILM obviously is an integral cog in the greater wheel of the print industry in South Africa and Southern Africa. Feel obliged to step up and in association with Printing SA and other partners in the industry to become to start leading out the way, to find a way to recover this industry from the tough times that we've been in terms of COVID, the recent insurrection and looting incidences that have had a burden on it, and I suppose the overall underperforming economy. So together with the panelists, we're hopefully going to have some interesting discussions today, and find ways and hopefully interact and talk to you, the audience, and find suggestions around how we do this and how we together, collectively, and in collaboration with one another, find a way to start rebuilding this industry. So from my side, I'd just like to thank everyone for joining us again. We hope that we add value to the meeting today. Thank you. Thanks, Tiffany.
Perfect. So that takes us into the first segment of our discussion, and we want to just unpack the impact that the recent underperforming economy, COVID-19, as well as the most recent unrest and the looting has done to the printing industry. So if I could put that to you, Dr. Mohammed, first.
Yes, thanks, Tiffany. I think on a macro level, our multiple downgrades with rating agencies have caused a big problem for us in terms of securing international investment. I think the second big problem on a sort of a South African-wide level is the Eskom's inability to provide stable electricity, and in that also affected the profitability of our member companies in terms of much unwanted downtimes that they had to endure, and burdening the companies with extra costs because some of them had to purchase generators at an additional cost. And of course, for the smaller companies who couldn't afford it, they simply had to weather that storm and manage the downtime in one way or the other. Then the third biggest problem we have in this country is the staggering unemployment rate, which according to Stats South Africa released about 2 weeks ago, it's standing at a staggering 34.4%, which is one of the highest in the world. Then in terms of COVID, we all know that during the hard lockdown, all our companies, in fact, the whole country came to a standstill for about 5 to 6 weeks. And from our side, only some print and packaging companies that were involved with essential services could actually operate, and that too on scale down times. So I think that affected us in a big way. And then the recovery from that time till today is not yet complete. There's still a lot of catch up to do. It's nothing like pre-COVID times in terms of the business flow and the workflow that companies are experiencing. And obviously, the other impact of COVID was the fact that online purchasing and delivery services were ramped up. And those that were in the litho printing found that if they had digital printers instead of litho printers, they could have actually come on board in a big way as well. So I think it caught us all a bit off guard. In terms of the damage due to the looting and insurrection recently, it's estimated that about 50 billion rands worth of damage was done. In terms of printing companies, one was severely damaged in that it was totally burned down in Pinetown, one flexibles company. 3 other printing companies secured major sort of damage as well to the infrastructure and to the equipment. And it's estimated by the DTI that over 10,000 jobs were affected in the manufacturing, retail, and service industries. The supply chain network between Gauteng and the ports of Durban and Richards Bay were also affected, with the N3 being closed down for a while. Then we had even the Transnet hack that also affected the movements of trucks and disrupted supply chains across the 2 provinces. And now, fortunately, we can say that things have now stabilized and the lockdown has moved down a grade to level 2, which hopefully opens up new parts of the economy, and in particular, the hospitality and tourism sectors, which I'm sure will impact positively in terms of the printing, packaging, and signage industries in general. Thanks.
Perfect. And same question to you, Edward, from a labor perspective. What is the impact?
Good morning, everyone. The impact, and picking up with the docs left off, even post-COVID, the economic implementation of the NDP, unfortunately, our government has drafted some of the best policies, but the lack of proper implementation, and we've seen a decline in the workforce and unemployment, and an increase in unemployment for many years, until this year with a staggering 34% unemployment. So yes, post-COVID, there has been various impacts, even on the printing sector, and government's misunderstanding of what the real role of the printing sector is within the country, and the outsourcing of certain print stuff has impacted on the sector. So we've seen, even post-COVID, a reduction in the workforce in the printing sector. COVID, the hard lockdown had a massive impact on us. From a union perspective, we saw a lot of retrenchments. We saw companies going into short time, impacting on members, impacting on the union, on our income stream. So yes, it's been a very difficult time, but I don't believe we need to lose hope. I think hope is going to assist us to try and turn around what we need to do going forward. The riots has had impact, like Dr. Mohammed has alluded. One of the factories in Pinetown was gutted. That's currently, we are busy with that company on the Section 189, seeing further retrenchments. So hopefully we can jointly find a solution to turn around the printing industry, the sector, and eradicate this high unemployment level that our country currently finds ourselves in.
Agreed, and that's exactly what initiatives like this is intending to do and put forward. And same question to you, Grant, from a business in the industry, experiencing what our peers are experiencing and engagements with customers. What have you experienced in terms of impact?
Tiffany, thank you. Thanks for the question. And I think to echo the sentiments of both Dr. Abdul and Eddie from SARTU is, we are an industry that contributes about 55 billion to the gross domestic profit per annum. So it's an industry that's of vital importance to the economy. I think from an employment perspective, we have an average of about 45,000 employees in our specific sector. So I think that speaks to not only the impact it's had on the print industry, but I think it's such an important industry. It has an impact on South Africa's economy as a whole, as such a big contributor. So I think if I speak, and having traveled a lot during COVID and obviously after lockdown and having traveled and spoken to a lot of our customers, I think a lot of what I've heard in the industry, and I think it's important that I probably try and represent the impact that it's had on them more than the impact that it's had on FUJIFILM per se. But obviously, I think the economy was in a bit of a free fall already, prior to COVID. It has been for a long time. COVID obviously accelerated the economy's downfall, and I think naturally with the closure of businesses and key industries such as our restaurants, our hotels, typically the hospitality industry, that has had a massive bearing on our print operators and our customers in the market. The likes not having events, I mean, as simple as that, I think we've all enjoyed going to events of sorts, and whether they're concerts, whether it's sport events, I mean, the impact is quite obvious. I mean, the printing that would normally go with that in terms of pamphlets and flyers and specials, the printing of menus in restaurants, simple little things that maybe the people of out in the world and the standard sort of layman don't understand the sort of impact. That's not just on the printing, on the finishing. The laminating houses, the finishing houses that are impacted by not laminating those menus for our customers. So there's a massive impact down the line. I think Eddie alluded to now, obviously this led to loss of income for our customers, and the natural effect of that is cash flow constraints for customers. That led to salary cuts. Many of our customers have still got their staff running on reduced salaries, short time in the factories. There's been and sadly a lot of Section 189 retrenchments, and the effect has been job losses across the industry. So the impact, I don't think we need to go into too much more detail than that, but I think the impact has been felt without a doubt in the printing industry and obviously the greater industry. And interesting enough, as this industry starts to switch on again, I think you're trying to do that with the reduced, now you're trying to run your operation with a reduced complement. I think the recent insurrection, the looting, has left a lot of our customers hesitant to invest in the industry again. They're reluctant to throw too much at it again. Access to finance is difficult at the moment. I think the banks need to, in my personal opinion, the banks need to start coming to the party a little bit more and loosening up and starting to offer better credit lines for customers. I think that would help greatly. And I think it's obviously for businesses such as ourselves to start putting together more tailored, unique financial solutions for our customers in order to help and get their businesses back on track, I suppose. So corporates, I think, is another issue. Corporates have a lot of the people have been working from home, as we know. I mean, we were impacted by that as FUJIFILM. A lot of our staff were set up at home. So I suppose just generally, and speaking to some of our fellow suppliers in the market, I guess you hear of the likes of the banks having 60, 70, 80% of their people working from home. So you can imagine the impact that has on print internally, that type of impact that it has. So that's massive. So if I think the impact's been really massive, and I think the recent looting and insurrection didn't help the cause. It only aggravated the issues that we're facing. But in saying all of that, the amazing thing for me is the positivity that I'm hearing from the industry still. So Eddie, you spoke of hope, and I think that is the sentiment that I get from the industry, is that people still hope and people still believe in the industry. And I think hence the idea to start putting together these type of platforms so that we can start, I suppose, taking that hope and turning it into reality, I guess. So yeah, that's from me, Tiff.
Thank you. And yeah, it's only really understanding the impact and the breadth and the depth of it. Do we really know how to assist the industry in the rebuild and the recovery? So I mean, that's quite a nice segue into the meat of what this conversation is about, which is understanding the measures each entity in each sector is sort of looking to contribute in this fight. So I'm going to hand over to Abisha, and he'll handle measures.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Tiffany. And good morning to our guests and my fellow panelists. Grant, I think you hit the nail on the head there. You know, we've been sort of in cocooned for the past almost 2 years now. And I think it's high time that we start getting out there and start, becoming more proactive. And, this platform is providing that level of feedback to the industry to show that, we are doing something about it. I know that it's a small step, but, more and more of these types of encounters will get us to hopefully where we'll be, where we once were, hopefully. So in keeping in theme with our discussion today, I'd like to pose a couple of questions to Dr. Mohammed. Obviously, Dr. Mohammed, from Printing SA's point of view, I'm quite aware of some of the initiatives that we are currently undertaking. But we quite often get the industry asking us, what is Printing SA doing for the sector? So in terms of the measures and the engagements that we've had with government, can you maybe just give us insight into, first of all, how has government contributed to the rebuilding and recovery of our industry, which is the printing, packaging, signage, and visual communication sector, as well as what initiatives are we as Printing SA doing in order to assist our members in becoming more productive and more efficient? Maybe I can start there.
Thanks, Abisha. I think we all know that President Ramaphosa recently announced the Economic Reconstruction and Recovery Plan, in which 2 government departments played a key role, that is DTI and the Department of Small Business Development. And they've garnered the support of many of these other agencies like the Industrial Development Corporation, the National Empowerment Fund, and the Small Enterprise Funding Agency. And all these agencies together have put together a sum of 3.75 billion rands that has now been made available for registered companies who have suffered losses during this last insurrection. And over and above that, IDC is also looking at another 400 million rand from the MSAP Economic Stabilization Fund. And this particular funding is going to support manufacturing companies that were affected by the unrest, including those impacted by associated supply chain disruptions. So they will be offering concessionary funding to affected companies through interest-free loans and even some bridging finance. And in addition to all that, the government is also developing further the ideas around the different industrial development zones that have been established. We have quite a few, the one in the ORT airport, the Ekurhuleni Metropolis that is being developed, then the Johannesburg Central CBD, how that is being developed. Then in Swane, they're talking of an automotive hub. In the western areas like Carltonville, they're talking of agro-processing in a big way. And then they're harnessing the support of iron and steel in the southern regions with in the spaces of Vereeniging, Sasolburg, and Van der Bijlpark. So all these IDZs are also going to be sort of spurners of new manufacturing companies that are going to be able to sort of operate in these zones, receiving tax rebates and preferential funding in terms of setting up manufacturing sort of concerns and factories that will obviously impact on more increased employment as well. So I think that's bodes well from government side. In terms of the business community, we have the South African Chamber of Commerce together with NADLAC and FEDUSA. They've come up with various programs as well. In particular, if you look at Saki right now, they've introduced a series of 6 webinars to aim at how to start up new businesses in South Africa. So for that potential new entrant into the field, they're offering free legal advice and commercial advice around how to register a business entity, how to develop a business plan, what contracts and insurance should be in place for you to survive as a business entity, what are the tax implications, what are the occupational health and safety regulations that small companies should be made aware of, and then also how to obtain business finance and what's available out there. From the Printing South Africa side, I think we've got an agreement with Productivity SA. So what that entails is that Productivity SA is offering our member companies preferential rates in terms of 3 core programs that they have in place. The first one is the Business Turnaround and Recovery Program, where businesses who are in distress or who might be on the verge of closing down can actually access this funding and access this help from sort of trained consultants from Productivity SA to help them turn their businesses around and get them back on their feet. Then in terms of competitiveness improvement strategies, they're looking at assisting companies to increase and maximize on their process flows and their competitive advantage in their different respective companies. And then they've got a third arm, which is the Research, Innovation and Statistics Program, which is also there to assist member companies to get important statistics that can help them thrive going forward. So the UIF has actually partnered to the Department of Labor with Productivity SA and has made a sum of about 110 million available via these 3 programs of Productivity SA. There are some criteria that need to be met. For instance, like companies should have a minimum of about 15 employees, be tax compliant, and also have audited financial statements to actually qualify for this assistance that is being rendered, sometimes through a co-funding mechanism, or if the company can't afford, then obviously they'll fund it as well. So I think these are just a few initiatives from the 3 sectors that I would like to stress for now.
Great. And I think, important to also make reference to in what you have just mentioned, Dr. Mohammed, is the fact that, Printing SA is, well, we are the mouthpiece for the industry. And in saying so, we do represent our members specifically on those platforms, which is Saki, as you've mentioned, Productivity SA, Proudly SA. So, the initiatives that you have mentioned, our members are able to access them by virtue of being members of Printing SA. And, we can, negotiate on your behalf to see if we can try to get some level of concession or some level of preferential, rates attached to any negotiations that will take place there. But moving on from there, Dr. Mohammed, I think, one of the biggest bones of contention that we've tried to address with government over the years has been the print products that are being imported into the country from other countries. Now, we view that in some instances as dumping, because some of the quality of some of these products are subpar as opposed to what we can produce locally. We can do as much as we can. However, there has to be a collective sort of movement. So my question to you is, how can the industry band together in order to put pressure on government and state-owned entities that are the major culprits in this level of importation into the country, to finally realize, localization and really speak to the agenda, which is in line with, your industry master plans and your national development plans. So, perhaps maybe you can give some insight into that. And I also open it up to Eddie and Grant as well. I think this is a topic that, cuts across the board, and maybe we get the 3 of you to possibly give us some feedback on that aspect. Dr. Mohammed, starting with yourself.
Yeah, so what we have in place is that if member companies would like to take up any issue around duties or tariffs that are either incorrectly listed according to the list that ITEC has, that is part of DTI. So what they can do is, via us, we can raise these issues on their behalf in terms of the anti-dumping and how, measures that can be put in place to avoid it. So basically what members can do is they can raise their concerns, they can propose new tariff codes if they want to. So if cheap imports are actually, noticeable and we have a list of these, then we can go back to the ITEC or in DTI and make an application on behalf of our member companies to say, we feel that this particular thing either the tariffs and duties have to be, in some cases, increased to protect our local sort of suppliers and producers, or sometimes decreased in order to ensure that we are able to produce at competitive prices. So the idea is that local companies must not get hurt through these cheap imports. And also they must not be hamstrung by cheaper, low quality products that are imported under incorrect heading. So we try and rectify this. And also they shouldn't flood the local market to such an extent that it forces our companies into closure and loss of jobs. Then on the other side with SARS, they've got a list of what duties they impose on different quality or different categories of products that are imported into this country. And SARS can also be informed if we find any particular company that's not sort of flaunting their regulations. Then on a broader level, recently we've signed, as part of the African Union member countries, the African Continental Free Trade Agreement. Now this will allow all companies and governments across the continent to benefit from one another. So this is going to allow more free trade across the continent. And since South Africa is a gateway to Africa, this is an opportunity for multinationals and other big investors to use it to locate their companies in South Africa and use South Africa as a springboard into the rest of Africa for their operations. In terms of some of the pressure we've actually put on government, the one is, I know Proudly SA, with whom we also have a very good relation, they have embarked on various initiatives to ensure and to encourage all the citizens of South Africa to buy local and to to manufacture local as well, and a whole range of products. Then if you look at DTI, they have a list of 16 designated sectors for preferential procurement by government. And unfortunately, we as a print value chain are not listed in those, and we are making efforts to actually address this with DTI to say, please consider us as a recognized designated sector for preferential procurement by government as well. Then in terms of the master plan that you alluded to, I know DTI has again come out with 6 different master plans, but we find that even again on that score, our own master plan for the print value chain has not yet been recognized as an important enough activity that DTI is going to take on our behalf. So we're hoping to get the ear of DTI, and working with them, hopefully we'll get a manufacturing sector, the 7th master plan in this particular manufacturing sector for our own sector on place in Correct. Yeah.
No, I completely share your sentiment there. I know you're alluding to the fact that we hope. I would just like to put it out to the audience that Printing SA, as in collaboration with SARD2, has actually managed to engage the DTI. So we are currently busy working on the industry growth strategy, and we'll be keeping you guys in the loop in terms of the developments there, because once again, we need the industry to band together, and we can only make substantiative submissions to the likes of the DTI if we've got a good portion of our sector that is backing the submission, the vision, and the plan for the entire industry. I think if I can move on to Grant, perhaps maybe you've got some feedback on that topic. Would you like to add anything to that?
Abisha, thanks, man. Obviously, quite difficult for Fujifilm to speak to the import side of business. I mean, we act as a subsidiary in South Africa to the greater global business, and naturally, a lot of our manufacturing happens across the globe in terms of the US, Europe, the UK, Japan, and China. So we have multiple factories for various disciplines, depending on what the equipment is that we're manufacturing. And naturally, Fujifilm's offering expands beyond just the print industry. As you know, we're famous for our cameras, our little green film, I guess, as everyone always remembers us. Our photography side of our business, our photo imaging, and of course our medical division is an ever-growing part of our business and a massive contributor to our business. So that said, I suppose from our side of things, the type of sort of measures that we're able to put in place. We can only do what we can do as an entity here in South Africa. And going back to sort of the original question in terms of the measures that we put in place as a business under these circumstances is, short-term measures, simple things like, there's been massive manufacturing and freighting cost increases during the last sort of year. If you look at aluminium, that's gone through 30% increase, but Fujifilm has managed to absorb and maintain pricing. So we haven't gone to our customers to try and help them through that. We haven't gone out with your annual increases, for example. So I think that's massively beneficial. That's a measure that we've agreed, that we said, let's help our customers to go to them right now to say, hey, here's a price increase. Is not going to be beneficial to them. I think short-term measures through the looting and insurrection were, customers that were affected by, as Dr. Abdul alluded to, businesses that had been burnt down, etc., etc. We've put in loan equipment for them to get them operational. We work on a try and buy type basis where customers can try our equipment for a 3-month period without having to contribute to the equipment, for example. Obviously, we've had to tailor some creative financial solutions, payment holidays, for example, long-term payment plans where people don't have access to finance from the banks, where we've managed to say to them, well, don't pay us deposits on the equipment. So just little ways that we've managed to sort of free up cash flow and that type of thing. In the longer run, we've obviously got we're always considering the environment. We're a company that's all about sustainability. A lot of the equipment that we've recently launched, and I think the sponsor of this event would be our QT Prime equipment. We speak to sustainability, we talk to environmental friendliness, and I think for us a lot of the sort of long-term measures that we're putting in place revolve around that, Abisha. I don't know if you know, but I mean, Fujifilm, just as a printing business, our inks are UV ink, which is solvent free. It means you don't need heaters. It means lower energy consumption. Faster drying times equals faster turnaround times for customers. LED curing systems, low energy consumption. So we factor in all of those type of things all the time. We've got processless offset plates that we offer to the market, which are chemical free. There's savings on that in terms of chemistry that you don't need for your plates to manufacture plates, faster turnaround times. We've got on the packaging sector, we offer Flenix water washout plates, for the flexo market. Again, faster turnaround times, plates that can be made up in 40 minutes versus 2.5 hours. So, I mean, I'm not sure if this is the moment, but I'd love to introduce Anya obviously into the session as well, just to let her talk a little bit to the QT Prime at the appropriate time. And I'm not sure if you'd like to chat to that now.
Sure. Anya, I think we've got a segment specially dedicated to you because we're very excited about what you've brought to the table. And Grant, I think when we talk about measures, you really hit the nail on the head in terms of what you guys are doing as business to contribute to the rebuild and the rejuvenation of our sector. I mean, you've basically answered one of the questions that's come through the polls, which is from Tatisi Makaba. And Tatisi was asking, if there was any advice we could possibly offer in terms of growing a small business into running a fully fledged production within the printing and packaging industry, and what sort of support is she able to access on any platform in order to increase capacity. She's also mentioned that it's really difficult to access some of these incentives, as mentioned by Dr. Mohammed, through the likes of your government institutions. And I'm glad that you did mention that Fujifilm is working on ways that they can work with the customer in order to try and bridge that gap somewhat. So thank you very much. And that's why I moved on to you, because I thought you would really be able to speak to another fellow business person with regards to measures. We will touch on those a little bit later. But Eddie, I would like to come back to you in terms of
Abisha, sorry, can I just jump in there quickly? And I hope that, I mean, it's a platform for discussion, but I think it's a great question. And I think without knowing a business too well, I think it'd be fantastic if after the session, you know, that they reach out to us. And I think all our details will be available to the audience. But I'd very, very happily engage with somebody like that to understand their business, to understand where they're at. And I think there's a lot more information we'd require, but most definitely would love to engage. You know, having been an entrepreneur in my former life, and having run my own business, you know, I'm very, very passionate about small business. You know, it's something that's very, very close to my heart, and helping businesses grow. So I think this comes out of more than just, you know, a FUJIFILM initiative. I think it's very, very close to my heart as the leader of the graphics division here in South Africa. And I'd love nothing more than to see other businesses success. And I've had a lot of failures in risks that I've taken in business. And so I'd love to help people circumvent some of those mistakes, you know, and make sure that we can give them the shortcut to success, and not do it the long, hard way. So I'd love to engage. I'm happy to engage here and after. So by all means, please reach out to me. Thank you. Sorry.
And Tantisi is actually a member of the federation. So member to member, I'm sure you guys will hit the mark in a matter of seconds.
Fantastic.
Eddie, sorry, before I move on to you, I just want to remind our audience that the polls are running in the background, so please take the time to answer them. They do give us quite a lot of insight into, you know, what your thoughts are, as well as, you know, what we can do going forward. So please continue to fill out the polls. I also want to mention that the panelists that you see in front of you will also be available at the Graphic Print Sign Expo that's taking place between the 5th and the 7th of October at Empress Palace. It is a much bigger show than the one that happened earlier on in the year. So please bring yourselves along. The lockdown restrictions have been lessened, so there's more to see. It is a live demo show. So, you know, you would be able to catch up with what you've been missing out on whilst in lockdown. And last but not least, I would like to move on to Edward. Now, Edward, SARTU plays a big role in terms of the labor space, you guys being the biggest union within our industry. You are also part of FEDUSA, and I know that you've had engagements at NEDLAC level. Would you like to just share some insights with us in terms of what sort of measures, from a labor point of view, are you guys sort of motivating at NEDLAC in order for us to see some level of policy transformation?
Thank you, Abisha. Yes, you know, and the NEDLAC discussions is ongoing constantly at the presidential, with the president's coordinating council. We are trying to find ways and means to reboost the economy. And as late as last night, the team was meeting again. But I believe within the industry itself, this is our opportunity to try and reconstruct and co-construct the industry jointly, to see and ensure that there's growth and future security for the industry. And some of the ideas, and we've had these discussions around with the DTI around, you know, all the printing equipment machinery is virtually imported. Why can't we have engagements with the suppliers of these equipment and create a equipment manufacturing sector or section within the country in collaboration with the major suppliers, similar to the inks that are imported? Where and how can we collaborate with our international partners to start producing the inks in South Africa too? So yes, I think collaboration for us as a union with Print SA is of vital importance for the future sustainability of the sector, the growth of the sector, and the eradication of unemployment in this country and poverty.
No, it's spot on, Edward. Thank you very much for that. And I think, you know, it's quite often, you know, there's this possibly historic Printing SA having been around for 110 years this year. I don't think we've ever enjoyed such a high level of collaboration with a union. But at the end of the day, this is all about inclusivity. It's about collaboration. And that's why, you know, these platforms have been created. But thank you so much, gentlemen, for your responses. I'm going to hand over back to Tiffany, because I think, Tiffany, you're going to speak to the last part of our segment. So yeah, please take it away.
Perfect. Thanks, Abisha. Yeah, I'm just going back to Grant's point when we sort of raised the question of the sponsor and the equipment that speaks to the objectives we're trying to achieve through these initiatives. Maybe Grant, you can just tell us a little bit more and then, bring Anya into our conversation.
Thanks, Tiff. Yeah, I've alluded to a lot of the equipment that we do build around. If I look at our recent sort of development on equipment, starting with our JetPress 750S, our inkjet printing range. If I look at our recent development in terms of our advanced Acuity Ultra R2 equipment that we brought in, again, LED curing options on that machine. We've launched a beautiful range, which I'll ask Anya to chat to now, of what we call the Acuity Prime range, which is a 20 and 30 that's available. And, there's continual development going on. And I think what that speaks to from a FUJIFILM perspective is our belief in this industry, our belief that this industry could recover, because there's absolutely no way that an organization of our size would be investing and developing and introducing new equipment of that nature if we believe that this industry was done and dusted. We believe there's a long, long future ahead of us, and it's just about how we navigate through these difficult times. So Anya, yeah, on that note, I'll hand it over to you. I think maybe just a quick note on the benefits of our Acuity Prime range, which is the sponsor of this event.
Yeah, thank you, Grant. Hello, everyone. I think a lot of print manufacturers are asking themselves the questions, how can we reinvent ourselves? How can we make our processes better? How can we have some cost savings? And Fujifilm had the same discussions, and we had a hard look and say, how can we support the print industry to answer some of these questions that they have? And I think very recently we launched a campaign called The New Blueprint for the Wide Format, which exactly speaks to these questions. How can we assist the industry? And with this new blueprint, we want to bring equipment to the customers that can serve as a tool for them to save costs, to improve processes, to venture into new markets. We obviously have the various different products, like Grant alluded, but the most recent machine that we introduced is our Acuity Prime, which is a UV flatbed printer. And a lot of these features on the machine are geared to assist the customer and get the best return on investment for our print industry. With features like your LED UV lights, with energy savings, it has sustainability on the ink. It's not just our generation that needs to be in the print industry, it's the generations that follow us. So we have to look at all of these things. If we want to rebuild the print industry, we have to do it sustainably. And I think that's a great start. I think with the new Acuity Prime, it offers a primer channel, which allows the print industry to venture into other industries like the industrial industry, the interior design industry. You can expand your product offering to other different substrates that you can print. So all in all, I think the machine is geared and designed especially to offer something different to the customers and assisting to get to the next level, and not just to the next level, but do that sustainably and economically, which is very important in these times. And then I guess everybody always asks me, oh, what can your printers do? And the answer is really simple. It puts ink onto substrates. So I always challenge people that we speak to is look further than just the print. What can you do with it? What value can you add to your customer? And I think this is where Fujifilm always likes to focus our efforts, is to how can we add value with our customers to produce the end product. So I guess that's just the shorts of the machine. If you want some more information on it, we'll be at the expo for some live online demonstrations where you can come and see it, but we'll just show you a short little teaser on the new equipment that we launched.
Thank you. And thank you for that, Anya. I think what's quite exciting is that, you know, equipment such as this, the innovative thinking behind it does really help transform business by opening up new markets, etc. So yes, so Abisha, I don't know if we want to go into.
Yeah, look, thank you so much, Anya, for that. I think once again to the audience, you know, that's possibly something that if you want to see it up and close, please contact our colleagues at FUJIFILM and they'll be able to take you through that. Anya, I think would be the go-to with the latest Acuity Prime, and thank you to Acuity for sponsoring this platform. Ladies and gentlemen, this platform is going to be a series of discussions. And once again, we do rely on these engagements with yourselves, you know, to give us insights into what is it that you would like us to address, you know, industry-wide. And, you know, in saying that, I just want to, you know, come back to the panel and perhaps Dr. Mohammed, if I can start with yourself. You know, we've seen this whole migration from, you know, analog and analog, you know, being, you know, the sort of printed substrate, you know, to digital platforms. And unfortunately, you know, what we've experienced is our colleagues in the digital realm, you know, sort of greenwash our space and seem to paint it with this obsolete, you know, brush. So and I've been looking at some of the trends that are happening internationally, as well as locally, particularly if we look at printed newspapers and magazines. Do you believe that they'll survive the digital onslaught? And, you know, what does the print forecast look like for those types of publications in the next 2 to 5 years?
Thanks, Abisha. Yeah, I think with the advent of the internet some 2 decades ago, we all thought that, you know, radio and TV will die. And if you look at today, all those 3 things are surviving and very, very part of all of our lives. Then if you look at digital technologies on the other side, with the rise of smartphones, tablets, Wi-Fi connectivity, laptops, etc., the thinking was also that perhaps now newspapers and books will become obsolete. And lo and behold, even that hasn't happened the way you know, those naysayers were predicting that it's going to happen. So all in all, I think it's true in that COVID-19 has impacted the print industry in a negative kind of way. It has accelerated some of the inevitable changes that the print media landscape has been exposed to. And now media houses are also preferring to publish online in addition to the fact that they have their printed media, you know, newspapers distributed. Now, we have seen the demise of certain publications, unfortunately, some of our regular features of magazines and newspapers. And I think the demise has been for many reasons. The one is when your advertising segment, in other words, the very lifeblood of that printed magazine, is withheld or diverted to another channel, perhaps of social media marketing spend, that it creates a vacuum for publishing companies to actually make it feasible enough for them to print that particular item. So that's one reason. The other reason is there used to be a time in our history when people used to receive mail by post, where there was a subscription list that you could, you know, subscribe to these magazines and it would be delivered to your PO box or street address. And right now we all know that SAPO is fairly dysfunctional and it's trying to get back on its feet, but a lot of that sort of space has been lost, unfortunately, permanently. So all in all, you know, with the reduced income and sustainability of these publications to continue in their printing spaces, some of these have unfortunately disappeared. But all is not doom and gloom. I think some of the recent stats are proving that there's a bit of an uptake now. Some of, like we've seen the rise of Daily Maverick, for instance, in the past year, that has come out and there's a free publication on top of it, which bodes well for media in general. Also, we noticed the rise of automotive and lifestyle supplements that are beginning to find their way back into the daily newspapers as well as the weekly newspapers. So I think that is also a good sign. And 2 magazines recently, like Food and Home and Garden and Home, have actually come back into circulation. So that's also good. So while the print circulation numbers have declined, but I think overall it is looking up in that there will be a resurgence one way or the other.
Yes.
But the one fact of the matter is that, pre-2019 sort of circulation print numbers as well as distribution numbers will never be reached now. I think the digital has made a real substantial impact on the whole industry. And I think newspaper companies themselves have realized that now they need to evolve into what is called newsfeed organizations. In other words, offering news in multiple formats, in smaller bite-sized chunks, and perhaps more regularly, so more frequently, in other words, on the turn, so that you don't have to wait for your daily newspaper the next day to get the news which is breaking now, tonight, or whenever, So all in all, I think the organizations are changing that are producing the materials, and obviously we need to adapt likewise to keep this the flow going. Thanks.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think, yeah, the statistics as far as what we've recently seen is the past 3 months have seen quite a resurgence in the number of printed pages for these publications, which is a positive sign. It just goes to show that, sometimes you need to go back to basics, and, the advertisers seem to be coming back and using the traditional media, to connect with the consumer once again. And Grant, this one is for you, and I'll be remiss to not ask this because it's quite a popular question that we field on many engagements with our members as well as non-members. Is international research obviously shows us that the digital print segment is on the rise. Now, from your point of view, what are the potentially high growth areas within the segment that people like Ntatisi and small businesses or new entrants need to start looking out for in order to start finding either new avenues or start plugging some of the gaps that currently exist in the market?
Abisha, thanks for the question. And I think before I get into that, I think I also just want to, add to the newspaper discussion. We've certainly seen a sharp increase from our newspaper customers in terms of those that we supply plates to. So I think I can attest to that. We've seen this sudden growth, and a lot of that is exactly for that reason. We're seeing advertisers coming back, supplements coming back into newspapers, and just an increase in pages that are, in terms of the newspapers' a number of pages that they're producing. So that's exciting. Certainly, I think the newspaper industry is far from dead. So that's good. And Dr. Abdul, I couldn't agree more with your sentiments. I think, Abisha, as far as the digital segment goes, there's massive growth. I mean, I think there's an inevitability about that. From a marketing perspective, as you know, the world has really become about shorter run marketing campaigns, more impactful campaigns, and that's what our technology has evolved to. So traditional printing would have been litho printing, where long runs were achievable. There's less and less of that. But that said, there's still some really, there's great combinations between the old way of printing in terms of litho printing and incorporating digital. So when we sell digital equipment, we're not about saying to customers, okay, well, litho's dead. It's about complementing that, broadening and diversifying your offering. There's ways to combine litho printing, and we sell technology like print bars that use for security printing, for variable data printing, that type of thing. So there's so many different technologies that we can still incorporate. So while that's digital, it works very, very well with the traditional litho printing methods, if I can put it that way. Inkjet is on the rise. That's become a very, very, a fast-growing market for us. And then, from a wide format perspective, as I said, we've invested in new technologies. Flatbeds are getting faster. The demand for direct to substrate printing, and it's about carving niches. Businesses need to start thinking about carving different niches in the industry. Glass printing, for example, like the primer on our flatbed takes you into a totally different space where historically inks wouldn't easily adhere to glass, for example. But with the primer that we have now built into our flatbed, for example, if you weren't previously printing on glass, guess what? Now you can, and that's exciting. So there's growth, there's opportunities, but it's just about sitting down and strategically deciding where you want to drive your business. One of the biggest segments that we're seeing growth at the moment is certainly in the packaging industry, and Ntatisi spoke to it. I mean, we're talking about that being a $250 billion industry, globally by 2025. So You know, if you're not in packaging now, guess what flatbed printing does from a wide format perspective? It takes you into that short run printing market. Our JetPress 750, it takes you into a packaging segment, you know. So it's become quite easy to diversify your business in terms of investing into digital equipment and digital technologies, not to replace what you do and what you've historically done, but to complement it and to diversify your business to grow into different markets. So it's exciting, and I think we will see a massive growth in the digital segment, you know, into the future.
Yeah. No, fantastic. Thank you so much, Grant. I think you've got quite a number of our guests very excited with that last stage. Once again, we do encourage our guests to visit us at the Graphic Print Sign Expo on the 5th to the 7th of October at Empress Palace. You'll be able to speak to the FUJIFILM team, as well as all of the other exhibitors and Printing SA in terms of helping you to navigate your way into 2022. Eddie, I have not forgotten about you. They say you leave the best for last. So Eddie, one of the questions that has been posed is, you know, given the previous question, which spoke to the advent of digital, you know, taking over, you know, it seems like you know, some of the skills within the sector are becoming redundant, as well as, you know, we need to obviously keep up with what's taking place in the technological realm with 4IR, 5IR. So what is SARTU doing in terms of its members, which are essentially the employees, to keep them in touch and keep them abreast of, you know, the skills gaps that, you know, we're starting to see?
You're on mute.
So thanks. Sorry about that. Abisha, look, I think again, it's about the collaboration with SARTU and the relevant role players. You know, with us moving to a digital framework, we need to start looking at new sets of training methods, upskilling the workforce, and not just sit back and believe that they're going to just automatically fit in and do what needs to be done. So yes, I think training and education is going to be a vital cog in the redevelopment, especially in the digital field. And I think, you know, if I go back to our research paper of SARTU with the IFR, where it came out very clear that print can be printed on any form of paper,
Substrate, yeah.
Substrate. So I think, you know, that's the future. And I think the writing that we did also put forward, we'll have to change our training methods, upskilling our workforce to ensure that there's growth within the individuals and within the organizations.
Yeah. No, thanks for that, Eddie. I know I sit on many other forums internationally where, you know, the great debate is, you know, how are we going to be attracting, you know, the generation Y into, you know, our environment? How do we make it more appealing? I think the phrase that's been used in the past is, how do we make it more sexy? Because, you know, apparently, you know, calling somebody a machine minder is not really, you know, at the top of one's occupational hierarchies. So we really need to reframe how we also sell, you know, the industry, you know, to the new entrants, you know, from a grassroots level. So ladies and gentlemen, I think, you know, I have come to the end of this discussion. There is a question from Matthew Robson. I think it will require for us to spend a little bit more time to really, you know, address it and cover it. So Matthew, thank you so much for your question. We will respond to you via email, and I'll ensure that all of our panelists, you know, give some input to that. And that being said, Tiffany, back over to you.
Thank you, Abisha, and thanks to our panel for enlightening us with a lot of content for today, but a lot of content that's valuable to us to know. Abisha's touched on it. We are obviously going to be at the Graphics Print and Signage Expo, so we'll see a lot of you there. If you've got any additional questions, keep in touch with us, continue the conversation with us at at the expo, outside of the expo, on our social media pages, FUJIFILM Graphic South Africa, Printing SA, SARTU, Sign Africa. Keep in touch, and we'll keep in touch with you as well.
Yeah. Sorry, Tiffany, before you sign off, I forgot to mention that at the show, we will be hosting a networking event after the show on the first day, which is the 5th. So everybody's welcome. Please come and have a chat with us. It's been a long time since we've rubbed shoulders, you know, and had a laugh. So please come through to the show, join us, and yeah, we look forward to seeing you all. Thank you. That's it from me.
Just in closing, we can see that there's a lot to cover, and this is an ongoing conversation. So we invite you to join us in part 2 of this webinar, which is happening on the 28th of October. We'll, you know, obviously send out some communication, get some feedback, get some interest in terms of if you've got any additional questions we haven't covered in this session. And that part 2 will really focus on mapping out that blueprint and really start defining it. And as you can see, it's more of a collaborative effort at the moment, and we will define that collectively as we go.
Thank you to our panelists once again. And yeah, we look forward to seeing you guys soon. Have a great day, everybody.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you for joining.